Okay, so welcome back, Alexis. It's great to have you.
Yeah,
And
hi.
yeah,
Thank you
so
for having me.
pleasure, pleasure. And Alexis has agreed to tell us a little bit about the modeling scene, which she's been involved in at a fairly high level, I have the impression. So I guess the first thing I was wondering if you might tell us, Alexis, is was this something that occurred to you at a very young age to do were older folks saying, "Hey, you've got the right kind of looks, you should get into this." How did the idea, "Hey, I'm going to try modeling," come about?
I was scouted a couple of times when I was about 15, but it was the first time. I spent a year in New Zealand, and it was there the first time. And it was towards the end of my stay, so there was not really any like future in it or anything
Huh. And
over
when you
there.
say, okay, in New Zealand, when you say that you were scouted, does that mean you were just like in some public space and somebody saw you and said, "Hey, you're like perfect material for model"? Is that what happened?
I was walking to school, high school there, and one of the owners of a very good agency there, he stopped me on the sidewalk. Um, but when I came back to Germany, I didn't try it because I don't know, different reasons. First of all, I thought, what will other people think if I go into an agency and try it? Like, oh, she's so full of herself or whatever.
Right.
So I kind of didn't really, yeah, have the guts, I guess, to go. And yeah, when I was 18, I moved to Berlin, and I thought, okay, no one knows me here, so I can just go to an agency and ask.
You
And
know,
yeah,
that's
luckily,
really interesting. Yeah, yeah, that's interesting to me that you had that hesitation, and you know, it seems that for many, there's a kind of a cost with being perceived as beautiful, and perhaps some difficulties in the way you interact with other people. So am I hitting that right there? Is that like it's like, yeah,
yeah.
they might.
Well, it depends. Actually, like the thing is, I myself, as a lot of models that I met, actually, they don't think of themselves as very beautiful. Of course, you also have the ones that do think of themselves as beautiful, but I don't. So it's very strange. But I notice, and now I've learned actually that people do perceive me that way. And in school, for example, I had a teacher in chemistry. He always gave me worse marks, and even though I did a lot for the subject, because he just said like, oh, you're just a blonde girl that wants to have good marks, but you don't actually know anything. So I was really very, yeah, I tried to do a lot for school, so I was working hard, and which paid off in the end. So yeah.
That's
Also, yeah,
interesting.
another thing why I didn't want to do modeling during school is because my parents actually they didn't really like the idea of me doing that because it's a very harsh business and they have a certain um, yeah, what's it called? Expectations of how you have to look like and how you have to behave and things like this. So, and they were not agreeing with that.
Right.
Yeah.
Um, would some of that fall under the category of um, the lifestyle of a model can sometimes be unhealthy because there's maybe a lot of calorie restriction and maybe living a fast-paced life. You're on jets all the time, getting not very good nutrition and that sort of thing.
Yeah, I think it's very very different for there are a lot of different types of models or different types of characters. Just it depends. You also, of course, you have the ones that restrict a lot and that just eat, I don't know, for lunch like a piece of mozzarella and some lettuce and I don't know, just smoke all the time or eat nuts and things like this,
Yeah,
or coffee and whatever. But then you also have the ones who really care about eating healthy, just eat a lot of, actually a lot of plant-based foods, Also, a lot of them, of course, include like fish and chicken or whatever, but a lot of girls, they eat very healthy, and they just exercise a lot to to stay fit. So
Yeah.
I met a lot of models who do this full time. So and usually you don't work all day during like normal seasons. If it's not fashion week, you don't work all day, and um, you have a lot of time, so you can work. Yeah, but it's different. I think models are very, very high, like top models. They eat healthy and they work out a lot because they have very stressful lives and they have to travel a lot. And if you are not healthy, it's not very possible to do this. So it's too hard, I guess.
Yeah.
And
Did
I
you
think you can
find?
also see it. There are a lot of girls. Hmm?
Oh, I'm sorry. I didn't mean to
But
interrupt
I
you,
just
but
wanted to say that there are a lot of girls, yeah, that
go
I met
ahead.
in Paris that actually do restrict a lot and that look very unhealthy because Paris is a bit more extreme than other places. So
Uh-huh. Okay. That's interesting. Yeah, that's
yeah.
another topic I want to talk to you about. Did you find among all the models that many were vegan or not necessarily?
Actually, I didn't find any vegan model, but um, I don't think that they, yeah, maybe it's, I don't know why. Difficult to say, but a lot of them have the stereotypical diet thing in your head. You know that carbs will make you fat.
Right, right.
So
Gotcha.
they prefer, a lot of them just eat fish and lean meat or whatever. And
Yeah, yeah,
yeah.
gotcha. All right, now let me go back to kind of your chronology there. So you got to Berlin and you're like, okay, I'm kind of away from my family. Nobody really knows me here. I can do the modeling thing. I'm not going to get a lot of hassle. So
Yeah.
did you get a portfolio together? Did you have to find a photographer and then did you have to like buy a bunch of new clothes and outfits or how did this happen?
So yeah, no, the thing is, well, I took actually with my webcam from my laptop, I just took like a frontal picture and one from the side, and then I took one from like my whole body shot, and I sent this to the agencies. And then there was one agency, the one I'm with right now, that wanted me immediately, and I thought this was very convincing because they seem to, yeah, like me a lot and just want to support me. So
Wow.
that was it. And I didn't have to buy new clothing because actually, like I always wear black. And I like to wear like tight pants and like just some t-shirt or something, or like I don't know, just something that suits already casting outfits. So it was just what I love to wear. So yeah.
Okay, okay, gotcha. So tell us a little bit about that process. So you had this one company that called you, and you mentioned that they were going to support you. So maybe you could describe how they supported you, and did they help you get your kind of portfolio started, and then maybe talk a little bit about your first gig, if you will.
My first what?
Well, your first, I guess your first photographic experience where you got paid.
Okay. Um, Well, I have to think about this because the thing is, in Berlin, there's actually not a lot of paid jobs. There are a lot of students and a lot of young designers who don't have a lot of money. So, yeah, you have jobs, like a lot of jobs where you get paid by with clothing or just a little bit of money. So, or
Okay.
you have shootings just for free. But with the support, I mean that they like me and that they will recommend me to clients, and um, that I know that I'm not just a model that just has the card somewhere and they don't care about, but that they actually push me or something.
That's good. It's like a
Um,
kind of like an agent. They're like an agent.
yeah, yeah, you have. Yeah, I would have to explain how the whole agency works. So it's you have bookers who have models, and then they have their clients, and they try to, yeah, get the models with the clients. So that's what they do. Yeah, and the thing was that actually I had really nice shootings in the beginning because it was always with people, with other models who already had some experience or a lot of experience, and which I found very helpful because I knew what to do and they were very kind. And I mean, you pose differently in front of a fashion shooting for fashion photographer than in front of a normal family camera, you know.
Right.
So that was very helpful.
Yeah, I'm curious about that a little bit, Alexis, and maybe you can tell us, because sometimes you see these real high-powered models. They walk down the runway, and they have this kind of very cold. It's like I'm going to step on you. Yeah. What's up with that? Why is that? Why does that help sell clothing? What's going on with that?
Well, I would interpret it as because it's very serious and it's strong and it just reflects maybe power. It depends on what the designer, of course, wants to sell. You know what his line is supposed to be like, what his mood is supposed to be like for this season. And but a lot of models, they do this because I would just interpret it as that it just reflects like a strong woman, and that maybe it's charismatic, or women want to be like this, you know, and just I don't know actually, but this is what I think, and maybe it just established in that way, and people like it. So yeah,
Okay.
but I mean, you have a lot of shows that are more like, you know, sexy and more feminine or more happy, and depends. But maybe it's also that, you know, for art and avant-garde, you have more of a serious type of look.
Okay. Okay. Do you feel that in some ways when you're doing this, is it a little bit like acting, and does that make it kind of fun because you get
Yeah.
to you get to kind of present these different aspects of yourself?
Yeah, that's actually what I really love about this, is what I actually love the most about it, because maybe it's because I'm from Düsseldorf and we have Carnival there, or
Uh-huh.
I don't know how to say in English, but where you just dress up and you're just a very different person or character or whatever, and it's, for me, it's really fun. It's just, I love to play different characters, and what I also like is, you know, when you have like complete makeup and completely different look, new clothing and everything, you just don't feel like yourself. It's so easy just to go and get into a different role and play something. Yeah, for me it's fun. I love to play. It's good.
That's
Yeah.
neat. That's neat. All right. So when this agency started helping you and getting you started, uh, did did they first get you like some small jobs, and I know later on you've actually started traveling to Paris and maybe Milan. I don't know.
So,
What?
actually, I just did Paris because, yeah, different reasons. I don't know, it's like a type thing and whatever. I don't know. Sometimes I don't get the logic, but a lot of girls, or a lot of people, they don't get the logic of agencies. So, yeah, I just went to Paris for the fashion weeks, and yeah, which is very stressful. So, actually, that's also a reason why girls are very skinny, because they just work a lot during Fashion Week, and you cannot believe how much they work. I mean, I was a new face, so I didn't do that much. But if you are like already established and you're just running from one thing to the next, you know, you just have castings and shows and castings and shows and fittings and whatever. And you just start very early and it goes like until nighttime, really late. So it's very exhausting. And
It's good to hear you say this, Alexis, because I think some of us folks who are not so intimately associated with modeling might think, hey, you're just sitting in front of a camera. What a cakewalk job,
No,
you
no,
know?
no, no. No, it's really really hard. So it's actually very important to be fit and healthy because it's you have to carry so much stuff. You have to carry a book which is very heavy. You have to carry shoes and you have to carry food and you have to carry something to drink and you run around all day and it doesn't matter what weather it is and what city it is, whether it's a new city or not, and you just don't know where to go and you have like a big fat book which is a map. You just have to find your way and then you go from one casting to the next and there you sit and have to wait or stand or whatever and for maybe hours and it's super boring, but then you have to run to the next because otherwise you're too late and you have to this like pressure and stress all the time.
Yeah.
And actually jobs are not so it's not like you just sit in front of the camera, you actually work. You have to like tense your muscles, you have to freeze when it's outside. Usually, for example, you always do summer clothing in winter time. So when you're outside, it's freezing cold, and you have to, I don't know, just have to, yeah, just endure things, and you don't say anything because models they never complain. That's a rule, unwritten rule. Yeah, and usually also a thing is that models they don't really have any time to eat because you run from one thing to the next, and when you're somewhere you don't have there's no food available, so it's very rare that you can actually go in time and buy something. And I mean you're always like running around and you cannot really just sit down and eat usually. So
Now, would this be going on like if someone is a model full time, they're doing this all week long, or is this like it sounds like you went to Paris for a specific period of time, and
yeah.
and I guess while you were there, you tried to attend as many of these castings as possible. Is that how it went?
Yeah, yeah. Well, if you are a model that works like on all fashion weeks and a lot, so then you do it for 4 weeks or 5 weeks, and it's super exhausting because you do all the fashion weeks, and then you have to do like all the castings in a very short amount of time during the shows and everything. So it's just so much, and you have then you also of course have other fashion weeks in other countries that are not so big. Besides the four big ones, and you also have like haute couture extra in Paris. And well, for me it was that I was just a month each time in Paris, so I could go also to other castings for like magazines and things, or I don't know, showrooms and not just shows, but all sorts of things. So it was a bit more stretched out into this time, so it was more comfortable, I guess. We only had like 7 castings a day instead of 15 or 20 or something.
Hmm.
So yeah,
Do
which
you
I
speak
think
any?
it's a little bit better. But
Yeah, yeah. Do you speak any French, Alexis?
I did learn it in school for I had it for 5 years. But the thing is, my French is not very good because I had in the beginning I had really a really bad teacher. We only sang songs all the time, and then I had a teacher who expected us suddenly to be able to write complete text, like full long pages of text, and nobody could. So he didn't accept that because he said, no, you have to be at this point. And um, French, the thing is, French people they don't understand you if you don't speak complete perfect French. I don't
Yeah.
know why. It's different when you're in Italy. I've been to Italy to learn Italian, and everyone was just talking to me and just asking me things and just trying to get me to speak some Italian. And I went there with no knowledge of Italian, and then I flew back and sat next to like an Italian woman, and we were talking in Italian all the time, like the whole flight.
Yeah,
And
I love it. Love Italians, and I think that's I mean, maybe it's a stereotype, but it seems that way. It's just a very warm, receptive quality when you're interacting with Italians.
Yeah.
Now, is it true, like, you know, you kind of in the public consciousness, you hear of Milan, Paris, and I don't know if New York City is also that, but would you say these are the recognized fashion centers in the world?
Yeah. New York, Milan, Paris, London, and Berlin is trying to.
Okay. All right.
But it's not on the same level because we don't have that many great designers here. So
Okay. And
yeah.
are you thinking just to do a little modeling while you finish your degree, or do you think you might pursue modeling after you graduate?
At the moment, I'm not sure about this because there were a lot of aspects of the work of this modeling world that I didn't like, and I personally I love art, so I'm thinking about going more into art. That's why I study art history at university.
Yeah.
Um, and yeah, for me, art is more. I always thought I wasn't sure whether I like fashion or a lot or art, but since I've gotten to know the art business, I think I prefer the fashion business. I think I prefer the art one. 'Cause I don't know. So I
Okay.
have to see how things develop and how it goes. Right now, I just finished all my exams and my everything at university. I just have to write my bachelor thesis. So I have some free time, and I want to go and ask my agency whether what they plan or what not. So I have to see how
Okay.
things develop and whether I get like an internship or something somewhere and just go. I would actually, I think I would prefer to have an internship somewhere abroad, maybe in New York or somewhere or London, and work there and just try to, yeah, establish myself in the art business more.
Beautiful. Now, would that be? It wouldn't necessarily be directly related to art history. Could it be? It could be in a gallery, or would it? It might have a historical. Um, I mean,
Yeah,
what kind of
the
job
thing
are
is,
you thinking
I'm
of?
not very into the historical part of art, so
Okay.
that's why I also study business administration. Um, because I think I would prefer to do something that has more to do with our business,
Right.
um, not in research or anything for art, but more in, like maybe selling it or having a gallery or working. I don't know. There are so many different areas, so
Interesting.
I
Interesting.
prefer more practical and over the theoretical one.
Yeah. You know, and it's kind of cool that you're in Berlin because, like you said, it's such a hotbed. I mean, I know you said there's not necessarily a ton of good artists there, but a lot of people who might think they're good artists. So at least that energy is alive there, and that's
Yeah.
probably been really good.
Yeah. Berlin, I think, is difficult. There are a lot of people who think that here there is not really an art scene happening, that it's more stagnant, and then that in New York and London it's more alive and more happening. And then you have other people just saying the completely opposite. So
You know,
I'm not sure.
there's a funny thing about that, and sometimes I have this line run through my head that art is so arbitrary, and that it and the value, how art is valued, and
Yeah,
how it moves a particular person, and how can you say that you know the primary art is only in one city? I mean, talk a little bit about that.
um, yeah. I think it depends on what kind of art, because I think that you have different cities that are specialized more in different areas or known for different areas, and
Right.
yeah, I guess it's not. I mean, it's for me. I think it's logical that you have certain, yeah, focuses on in certain areas because people who are alike and they just want to come together and work together and just like I don't know how to say like feed each other, you know?
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
interesting.
So I guess that's why it's same with fashion. I think that's why you have the certain centers, and it's not everywhere. So
Yeah,
and then
yeah.
you have schools and the academies and everything, which are just located in these capital cities. Or
Would you say, I've heard someone say, tell me if you agree with this, that good art will cause an emotional response in the viewer?
yeah, I find
Would you,
that.
pardon?
I find that as well. I at least yeah, that's what I always experience. So and it's very funny because sometimes other people, of course, they have response or emotional response or touching with other art pieces that where I don't have the same feeling, but I know that these people have also very good sense for it. So it's interesting then to just exchange each other, and then you actually get a new perspective, and you start to feel things for it. But um, I go with my own. Um, oh God, I don't know why, but I'm missing words today.
It's okay.
My intuition. That's what I wanted to say.
Hmm.
And yeah, usually there is something with it. There's um, yeah, there's a reason why you have it, and so I
Right.
just try to follow that.
Yeah, you're reminding me of a film. I don't know if you saw it. It was about Pollock, and yeah, and I thought one of the interesting aspects of his life was, he's working, working, working. Nobody's recognizing him. Then he goes through this phase where he's on fire and he's he's on the leading edge, and everybody's recognizing him and praising him. And then he falls out of that, and he's back to not making anything that anyone values. That just is interest. It's interesting that there can be that fluctuation in the way the culture perceives things.
Yeah, yeah. And I think yeah, maybe I just don't know enough about it yet. But yeah, I don't think I have seen this movie, but or the film. But could you repeat? Maybe I didn't get it, but that did he get out of a phase and not do anything, or did just the people didn't perceive him as
Well,
special
that's a
or
great
his?
point. That's a great point. I mean, he was a severe alcoholic, and
Yeah,
it could have been that he became less and less productive. I mean, in the film, they suggested he was still painting some, and people just they weren't appreciating what he was doing. So it was like he went through this phase, and he exploded through some barriers, I guess, in terms of
yeah,
expressing in art, and when he did that, he was recognized. But it's like after he did that, he kind of faded. And you're right; it could have been associated with his alcoholism. That's possible. Yeah.
I mean, maybe I mean if you're someone who just stays in one line, just does the same all the time, at some point it gets boring for people, of course. And I cannot recall. I haven't looked into Pollock that much, so I am not sure. Um, but I mean, it's also at the moment art is like super harsh as well because some people they just are popular for that moment, and then the next they're not interesting anymore. And it's same, I think, in like all the very subjective feels, you know, where you had just it's just depends on the liking of someone, and but maybe he didn't develop himself like very much. That he just had like this one thought, and at some point it came to an end, and there was not much going more. That people were not interested in anymore.
Yeah. Yeah.
Also, maybe he just didn't like have the right thing for the right time.
Yeah.
I don't know how to explain it.
Yeah,
but
yeah.
maybe you know what I want to say.
Yeah, I think it's highly possible. I mean, I think he ended up dying in a car accident, or someone was killed in a car accident while he was driving drunk, and it was kind of a tragic end. But it was just interesting, the dynamism that was associated with his rise to recognition in the public, and then kind of quickly falling out of that. But you could easily be right. It could be that he didn't follow through with enough effort, enough.
I mean, yeah, or maybe he really just went with his alcoholism. The thing is, we didn't really talk about his biography. We talked about subjects that have to do with how artists, for example, present themselves, and that he did like this video about how he paints things. You know this, maybe you know it. It was a very a video that was very much talked about because he kind of revealed his process, and afterwards he was very unhappy about this, and it was something that he couldn't get over because it just completely showed his process of how he works and how his magic happens in his brain, you know. It shows how he drips his paint, and for him, I think that was also the point where it went downhill with him because he was so frustrated and just felt so exposed. But we didn't really talk about his biography, so.
Yeah. That's interesting. You're making me think of a question, which is, do you, since you've been in the fashion industry, you're involved in art history and also the business of art. It seems to me you perhaps thought a little bit about what is beauty, and you know sometimes you hear a line like beauty is truth or truth is beauty, and sometimes it seems like in nature beauty can be recognized, but there's also this element of individual perception and how that can filter what's perceived. What have you concluded about this at all?
Well, it's differently because, you know, in the art business, you of course they have also typical beauties, you know, like classical ones where you think, oh, she's beautiful. But the thing is, most of the times, these people at some point they get very boring. They become very boring because it's just too perfect or too homogeneous.
Too symmetrical. Yeah.
Yeah. And you often find a lot of models who look if you see them in real life, where you would think like, oh, they look strange. But actually, if you look at them in the pictures, they look more interesting. They have more character. You can see more of their soul. You can see more something special that makes them very interesting and very much that people just want to look at it all the time. So that's why they have in fashion usually a very different type of beauty, something that just has like a certain charisma. Charisma.
Yeah.
And then also I think that I have the same when I now see people, and I know, yeah, okay, they look beautiful, but I think you can see the character of a person. You can see how intelligent the eyes are, how much there is inside of this person, how the face moves and how you can immediately see how people are. I mean, it sounds stupid and maybe a little bit superficial, but I guess I really believe that you can actually see in the way that they move and in the way that they look, and not their appearance, but just the way that they act, what the person is like. And I find this makes people very beautiful and attractive, or not. But this, for me, has more to do with beauty than actually just looking perfect.
That's
Um,
that's very interesting. Yeah.
and I, if I talk to people who are not in the fashion business or have no insight into it, they think mostly differently. They have like a different type of beauty that they like. They have more of the wow, she's beautiful, and but not the maybe a little bit strange and maybe a little bit individual and characteristic thing that they like, just the typical one. Um, and I find this in art as well. You have to have something that touches you, something that is just that just does something with your mind and your. I don't know how to explain, because I'm a person, for example, I have very I would say like a relationship with colors.
Huh.
um,
I
yeah,
like that.
it's
I like
different to
that.
difficult to explain, but the thing is that's also why I wear black, because for me colors, they're so strong. Um, if I couldn't wear colors during the day, because for me it's too much. For me colors are just so, they express so much. For example, when I see numbers or letters or words, I see colors. So I just have like this really strong feeling with colors and emotions that come up. So for me,
Wow.
for example, paintings could just have like a certain, yeah, coloration, just something that yeah, it just brings something up inside of me. So um, or the same with shapes.
That's really
Yeah.
interesting, and you're making me think that uh, different individuals have different levels of, I guess, sense perception. And it's like, it sounds like for you, the visual is very refined, whereas for another, it might be the audio that's extremely refined or
Yeah.
tactile. It's very interesting what you're saying, I think.
Yeah, audio, that's something I wanted to get into just to learn about it, but the visual thing is something that I always had, that always was like in my, I don't know, it was so super important for me.
Mm.
Um, yeah, it is very, very difficult, I think, to explain how actually it feels and how it works. So,
Mhm. That's neat.
yeah.
Um, can you say a little bit about, um, you know, making oneself beautiful uh, with, let's say, external effects, like if there was such a thing as natural beauty. Let's say someone was, before we had civilization, people are just running around out in the
Yeah.
wild. That there's a kind of beauty to that, and and now we have these technologies and these ways of enhancing our beauty. Talk a little bit about maybe the difference between those, and if there is one.
Well, to what I would say, what is always the most beautiful is if when you can see health, someone who just is happy and just glows and just has something, some energy that's just reflecting and coming out of them. So, for example, if someone has like really nice skin and glowing eyes and great hair, and they just don't do anything with themselves, they're just natural, something that reminds very much of little children, because when they run around outside in the sun, you always have like this pure healthy vibrancy around them. And when you have like older people who just put stuff in their face and want to create something, for me that is not beautiful anymore, oftentimes, most of the time. So um, And I think also that in fashion, they try to get this image of course, young perfection.
Yeah.
That they have this, yeah, pure, and that's why also they airbrush everything so much, and because they just want to have this healthy, perfect, whatever.
Yeah.
But
I don't know if you saw this, but it was something I came across on the internet, and it was someone who was showing what could be done with Photoshop, and
yeah,
they took this woman who I think she might have been Tibetan or East Asian. I forget which country she was from, but she was very old, very
yeah,
old, and they took her. She's probably like 100 years old. I think that's what they said, and they photoshopped her until she looked like she was 20. And
yeah,
I just thought that was so weird, that it's like you can't. It's like people can't accept that aging's a part of life. It happens, and it's
yeah,
kind of this worshiping of youth thing going on there.
yeah, yeah. And I think it's really sad, of course. But I think that there are now also a lot of photographers who try to have very unphotoshopped images, very pure ones where you have almost no makeup and just where it looks very natural and very um, almost like amateur.
Yeah, yeah, amateur.
Ima-
Yeah,
Amateur? Yeah.
yeah, yeah, amateur. Yeah, yeah,
Yeah. Um, and where you don't really have that much of Photoshop, but yeah, it's difficult. I don't like it when pictures are too photoshopped. For me, it looks like plastic. It doesn't look like anything that is worth anything, you know? It's
Is it
same, huh?
is it easy for you to tell when something's been photoshopped?
Yeah, yeah, definitely. You can see it immediately. It just the skin looks different, and it just um, it's just too smooth and too like no one looks like this.
Yeah,
Just you have no coloration, like or wrong coloration in your face, and I mean already when you put on the makeup, they make your face completely one color, where you think you look in the mirror and then you think you're like a dead person because you just have a pale face. And I'm someone I always have like rosy cheeks and always have like freckles and all sorts of things going on. So if I get like a completely pale face, I look in the mirror and I think like, oh my god, that looks so unhealthy and so dead. And then they start to put color on your face, and it's like, oh, okay.
that's funny. Um, was one of the things you encountered, sometimes you hear that models have to have very specific characteristics in their body in terms of height and shape to be accepted within the modeling community. Was that true for you, or is that changing a little bit as things progress?
I mean, you always have exceptions. Like, I mean, Kate Moss, she's smaller than the average model, but and then you have like two or three girls that are maybe a little bit more curvy, but usually you have this one type. You have to have a certain height and you have to have certain measurements, otherwise you won't fit the clothes and no one will book you. And of course, everyone does everything to fit these measurements, and if not, then they just write wrong numbers on your set cards. Like, if a girl is too tall or something, they just put like 2 centimeters less or something, or just like if your hips are a little bit too wide or too small, they just change it a bit. But yeah, I mean, it is normally very important that that you fit the measurements, especially if you're new. But I mean, if you sometimes girls are very lucky because they just look so special, and people love their look for this moment that they don't really mind if a girl is too small or too tall. But usually, you have to have these measurements.
Gotcha.
And so that's also a point that I don't really like about the business because they don't tell very young girls how to get these measurements by doing like more sports or eating more healthy. They just say, oh, you have to lose weight in 5 days, like 2 kilograms or 3 centimeters of your hips or something, and then they just don't eat anymore. Depends on how strong they are, like in their character, you know.
Yeah, yeah, I'm sure that leads to a lot of problems
Yeah.
for girls. Is it as common in Europe? I know it's pretty common in the United States that a lot of young girls have issues around diet because of this reason. You know, not really understanding nutrition, and then things like bulimia, anorexia can arise just because the culture has this idea of what's right and not much nutritional awareness.
Yeah. Yeah, I've actually met a lot of girls, or where, of course, not met them directly, but I think you can see it usually. I mean, there are always girls who are naturally super skinny and they would love to have more curves. But usually, if someone is anorexic or bulimic, you can tell. I mean, I've seen a lot of girls who are, and you just see the difference. You just do if you know how to look at and how to see it. But I found that also at my university now, like the new semester, there were always girls who were super super skinny, and where you can just tell that that's not natural because you just see too many bones. I mean, there are always girls who have people telling them, "Oh, you're too skinny, you look anorexic." But in my opinion, these girls they don't. But if you are, you can really tell because it just looks different. You
Yeah.
can tell by the skin color and hair, how the hair looks like, and just everything. And so I noticed that there are a lot of girls having this.
It's ironic that it's as common as it is in these, developed countries, uh, where there's this tremendous wealth in terms of food, and then you
Yeah.
have these young women essentially starving themselves. It's
Yeah.
amazing.
Yeah, I mean, there's so many different reasons. I mean, it can also already start, when you have problems with the food because the food is too processed and you cannot really digest it and you just don't feel well eating, so you just don't do it because it makes you sick and then you can't get into a cycle and so on. Or it could be, I don't know, just image and pressure, and you know how, for example, people say or people feel that people who are skinny and maybe muscular or something, that they are more successful also in life and jobs because they are determined and that they work a lot, and that you have this psychology going. Or then people who just always had this as like a channel to release pressure or whatever, and so many different reasons. And the thing is just that now our relationship with food, I would say, is so unnatural in society. It's a product. It's just something that people, they have no relation to it anymore. They don't know how important it is or what it actually does to the body. They have no connection, and they don't know how it actually affects it, like really does affect the body. And so I guess it's just something where people are very confused, and um, they just think that it is maybe, yeah, they don't really perceive it as something very vital and something that you need to have energy and need to be good in your whatever you do. And it's just something that people eat out of pleasure or whatever. Um, just so many different reasons.
Yeah, that's a great point. It's easy to oversimplify that and just kind of broad brush it. That's a
Yeah,
great point. Yeah. Something that while you were talking kind of popped up in my head, and maybe you could talk.
yeah.
Oh, go ahead. Something I was curious
Oh,
about.
no, no. What do you want to say?
Well, I was curious. I was just thinking about spirituality. And I was wondering, sometimes these are huge stereotypes, and maybe you can help destroy them a little bit for me. But in the United States, there can be quite a bit of religiosity, which doesn't seem as present in Europe. And I'm just wondering, is that at all true? And then perhaps in addition to that, has the spiritual life had any role in your life?
I would guess that you mean that you have a lot of very not extreme, but very. You have like a lot of communities that have certain types of belief systems in the United States, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. I would say maybe that's like a historical thing that they just went out of Europe because they were not welcomed here, and they thought, okay, America, the new country, let's go there. Yeah, and here it's not. You of course it's mostly Christian, but you have a lot of people coming from other places. So here, especially in Berlin, you have a lot of Muslim people here, like so many, um, and a lot of younger people. They don't really believe in religion or anything anymore. They try to find like something else or not anything. I think it's very mixed. They don't really take it that serious anymore. Of course, we also have exceptions, but most of my friends and people I know, they don't take religion as something that is very important to them.
Hmm.
It's something that is okay, traditional. Of course, you have Christmas and Easter, and you know what it's about, but and then you've celebrated, but it's not like they actually do something for the religion. They don't go to church or I don't know, do like prayers before they eat or whatever. And then you have a lot of influence, like a lot of trendy stylish things like yoga coming in, where you just try to get more in tune and more in touch with your inner self and your body and everything. And so people start to meditate, and of course they have things like this coming in, but it's not. It's not. I think it's not very specific. It's very like a mix and match out of different things, and people trying to find their own thing to be maybe stay grounded and just stay balanced, and
Yeah.
that's how
Yeah.
I perceive it at the moment.
That's interesting because I think the time we live in is interesting in that these old approaches to spirituality and perhaps new ones are getting mixed up, and maybe it's creating something new. So it's interesting
Yeah,
times.
yeah, yeah, definitely. And I think it's super important that we have this because our world at the moment is so chaotic, and there are just so many things going on and in such a speed that people they cannot keep up with it anymore. And I've met so many people who are very depressed, and like just so many where I thought, wow, that's not normal, because it's for them. It's too much pressure. You have like all the social media where you see everyone being super happy and having so great lives, and then you think like, oh, yourself, oh, my life is not as great as theirs. And then you have other pressure from like you have to be fast at university, you have to be good because you have to compete with like a whole world, and I don't know, just so many things, and you have so many options of different types of jobs that you can do. It's not like you have, I don't know, you can do something practical and be like, I don't know, whatever.
Yeah.
But it's
You
just
can
too
be
much.
you can be a chef or you can be a nuclear physicist. Yeah.
Yeah, it's just too much for people that they get overloaded with all this information and everything, that they try to find something that helps them to escape or to get in touch with themselves again, and to just make them happy and feel more balanced. And so that's why I guess that people do search for something, but they don't know what for, because they don't really believe, I think, in the old religions or the old ways of how they work, because for example, Christianity, in my opinion, it's not very modern, it's not up to date, and it doesn't suit our lifestyle or our needs anymore. So it's very difficult, even though I do like the values and um, yeah,
Yeah, very
that's
interesting.
why.
Yeah,
Yeah. And then you have also more and more science coming up. So people, they don't believe in, or a lot of people don't believe in the spiritual things because there is no science backing it up. So they try to find something else.
I don't know if you've heard of it over there, but we have a group here that has built a museum that tries to disavow a lot of the science around the historical evolution of the planet. And you know, they're trying to keep it biblically based, which you know, if you follow the Bible, I think it's the Earth would be something like 6,000 years old, and they have this museum that tries to justify this belief system. So
Okay, that's really funny because here in Europe we don't have things like this. Okay, I find that really funny. The museums we have, they're very traditional, I guess. No, it's funny. I know I haven't heard about this.
yeah, it's kind of a it's too bad. There's kind of a debate in the United States about this because many scientists see it as obstructing the progression of, you know, cultural intellectual development.
Yeah.
So anyway, um, but let me close this up, Alexis. I know you got to go to bed, but let me ask you, if you were talking to a young girl who was thinking about going into modeling, what might you tell them? Would you say it's worth doing? Would you give them some tips about how they would go about it?
I mean, I would say it is worth doing if you like. Uh, yeah, it is worth doing. I mean, if you're someone who is very natural, very skinny and tall and fit, and you are very strong as a person in yeah, your mind, and you have people at home that back you up, and um, then of course you have to be patient and enduring, and you have to be able to handle criticism because it's just you cannot take it personally if someone says that they don't like your nose or whatever. I don't know what, but yeah, and I would also always suggest to finish school first, or at least during this, because I've met a lot of girls who don't, and in my opinion, that's not right. And that you have to be, um, uh, you have to have like a very thick skin. That if people tell you something, that you know your position and your rights and things that like your own, that you're a person and that you don't have to suffer, and that you can. It sounds very bad, but these are just the bad things that they have to remind themselves of, because I think you can forget about it very fast, because there's like a very extreme hierarchical structure, I think, in the business.
Mm.
Um, and in my opinion, it's fun. Um, like shootings are fun. You have great um, options, great things that you can do. You can travel and you meet great people. I mean, of course, you meet horrible people, but that's not normal that you have great and horrible people. Um, and that it's not the way that you can, it's not the same way as it's shown in the TV on, I don't know, like America's Next Top Model or Germany's Next Top Model or whatever. It's completely different. And that it's, I don't know.
I think
Yeah.
that's a great point. That, you know, in a lot of these shows, they have to edit out a lot to keep the show interesting, and So there's really no way you can get from the show what the experience is actually like.
Yeah. And also when you start, you have to always always be aware of that maybe you won't have like a very quick start because some models they just get discovered and immediately have like huge contracts and everything, but then you also have models where it takes 4 or 5 years where they just have small jobs all the time, and then at some point maybe someone likes them so much that they have them for a campaign for a campaign, and then they get new really big jobs. But um, I mean, sometimes it just takes a long time, and I mean, I haven't had like huge like this type of jobs. I mean, I did work in Paris and I walked shows and everything, but I didn't have like these really high scale things. So
Right.
I mean, there is also a lot of work in there. You have to be very good at networking, and you have to have very like a lot of luck. It's nothing that you can learn for. It's not like you go to university and then apply for a job or anything. You can show people what you can do, what you're able of doing. It's just yeah, you just have to look good in their eyes. And
Yeah.
I mean, girls from Russia, whatever, these girls, they don't speak anything besides Russian. They're like super young, and they get like great jobs sometimes because people just like their look. And they just stand there and do whatever, but they don't understand a word and they don't care about anyone. So it's
Yeah.
just, it has nothing to do with your character. It has nothing to do, I guess, with who you are as a person. It's very much about your look, and you have to be able to handle this because, in my opinion, for me, it's very difficult because I want to be worth something more. So for me, it's difficult to cope with this.
I love that. I think that's really excellent advice because I think you've kind of alluded to the fact that young girls, if they don't have a strong identity, then it could be end up being an unpleasant experience because if you're
Yeah,
not if you're not selected immediately, you're going to go through a lot of castings where you may not be chosen, and it's kind of constantly saying, you're not good enough. So you
yeah,
got to really believe in yourself and not let the kind of whims of perception affect your
yeah.
own self-worth.
Yeah, I mean, you learn so much actually doing these jobs. You learn how to um, like work with other people and just like in big teams, and you learn how to present yourself and just how to be confident and how to just a lot of things actually. So it does you do grow as a person as well, but still it's very hard.
Yeah, I think
I
it's
think.
I think it's good that it sounds like you had your first job when you were 18 or 19. So
Yeah,
that sounds like it's better than, say, somebody who's 14, 15. That's maybe a little bit young to put this kind of pressure on them.
yeah. Well, I did model in New Zealand for a month or so, but I had jobs there as well, and I found it very weird because when you're 15, and then I had like a hair show where I didn't really know what to do because no one really told me before, and you just stand there and wear like very very like a little clothing only, like I don't know, it was like a bikini or something, and you wear high heels and go and walk the show, then it's super strange. So you have to be able to cope with this, and you have like like a completely different way of seeing your own body, and just how like the connection is completely different. It's more, yeah, it's more of a thing, not yourself. It's because you just it's I don't know how to explain, but
Yeah,
you're just very.
this is a huge point, Alexis. I think it relates to a big question about our whole culture around modeling, fashion, beauty, and it's this objectification, especially of women, but perhaps now it's happening a little bit with men. But objectification of human beings,
Yeah.
it's a huge principle.
Yeah, yeah, definitely. I mean, yeah, I mean, you have to be able to just stand there in like a nude thong and not wear anything else, and people just walking around you looking at you because they, I don't know, and it's very difficult in the beginning because you just feel like, I don't know. I mean, you're almost naked, and just people commenting about you, and
And you're 15. I mean, yeah, that's that's strange. Yeah.
yeah. So maybe you also get more secure about yourself and more confident in your body and have like a nice relationship, but also it's sometimes very distant. I mean, if you work and you just change and people just walk by and you don't care about it anymore, so there's like a
Yeah.
certain intimacy that is lost.
It maybe it's a good thing in the sense that you've had this experience that not everyone gets to have, and maybe it helps you look at public perception of beauty a little more objectively and a little more honestly than perhaps the public.
Yeah, yeah, and also I think the job is not as glamorous as it looks like from the outside. So
All
I
right.
mean, maybe if you're like a super top model, and which is there are only so few of them, and there's so many girls going to the castings for the Fashion Week, you cannot imagine there are just hundreds of girls just standing in a row, and you have to wait for hours, and um, yeah, that's why my perception now is a little bit negative. But these are just aspects that you have to know when, and just that you don't get. Disappointed or frustrated because it's just an aspect that is it's just like this.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
I
Well,
mean, of course, it's also fun and you just do really cool stuff, but also you have this other side that is just very just long and exhausting, you know.
yeah.
So
It's very interesting. Very interesting. So thanks for shedding a little light on this world that most of us don't really see the back that behind the curtain.
yeah, that's the side I pointed out is the side that no one knows really how it works, and people just see the positive things. I mean, there are a lot, but also there's a negative side to it. So it's
Yeah.
good if you know it a little.
Yeah, definitely, definitely. So Alexis, thank you for taking the time, and
Yeah, thank you
congratulations.
for letting
Yeah,
me.
always a pleasure, and congratulations on finishing your exams, and good luck on your thesis.
I'm super happy now because I feel like I don't have any plan on what is going to happen. I have no studies, no lectures we have to go to. It's just things that are just coming in. I just know a week before maybe, and it's very exciting.
That's great. It's great.